My guest tonight started directing in 1976 and has directed over 100 productions. She has acted in 46 productions with such companies as First Stage Players, Canterbury Players, Town and Gown, Theatre UAB, Birmingham Festival Theatre, TNT, Summerfest, UAB Southside Repertory Theatre, Parable Players, ACTA, South City Theatre, Center Stage, and the LJCC. She has been the president of the Alabama Conference of Theater and Speech, written 8 original scripts for the stage, and won the Alabama Conference of Theater Director of the Year Award. In 2007, she won the National Endowment for the Humanities Fellowship and has been a theater teacher for over 30 years, from which she recently retired from. Once again, I've had the privilege of gracing the stage with her. Please welcome Martha Summey.
Thank you.
No, thank you for giving me your time tonight and letting me do this interview. Tell us about your first.
It was a choice. It was a choice today. It was a choice. I could have gone out and pinched off the buds that were dying from some of the flowers that I've planted, or I could have come and done this with you.
That's a hard choice, so I appreciate you picking me.
No, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Tell us about your first production. What do you remember the most about it?
Okay. My very first production goes way back before Birmingham, okay? But I have to tell about it because in addition to it being the first production I was in, it also was the first play I ever wrote and the first play I directed. I wasn't supposed to be in it. It was called The Smallest Elf, and it was a Christmas play. I was in the 7th grade, and I was at Cartersville Middle School, and Cartersville, Georgia, where I'm from. And I wrote the play, and we were going to perform it the last day of school before the holidays in our little bitty, elementary school looking auditorium. And everybody in the school was coming to see it. So I had written it and I had cast it and was directing it, and everything was going really, really well until the girl who was playing the smallest elf didn't come to school on the last day of school before the holidays. Now, I'm not a real tall person now, but I was tall for my age in the 7th grade. There was no way I was the smallest elf. So I was a good head taller than the kid who was playing Santa Claus. I'm not going to mention the girl's name, but I do remember her name. That's how peeved I was with her. She wasn't a close friend of mine, but she was the shortest kid in the class, and she was pixie looking. She was cute, right? So when she didn't show up, I was the only person who knew the lines. So I had to play the role. My mother was the home economics teacher at the junior high school. And so I went dashing over to her classroom and said, "Mama, I've got to come up with some kind of costume because the other one wouldn't fit me. I've got to come up with some kind of costume because I'm going to have to play the elf." She helped me put together something. I happened to be wearing a red and green plaid dress that day. So she helped me come up with something. We made a little hat out of, I think, crepe paper. And so there you go. And I was the smallest elf, the tallest, smallest elf in that production. But you know what they say, the show must go on.
There you go.
So it did. And that's when I learned that you just can't trust everybody.
True. Please tell me you got to say to her, "You'll never work in this town again."
I don't recall ever having spoken to her again. That's how irritated I was. So yeah, I should have said that. See, if I had just known in the 7th grade that I
See?
should have said that would be good. I need you there.
What was the first show you directed? Well, you just told me, so there you go. But and you kind of told me about that experience. We kind of covered 2 questions with 1 answer.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Of all the
you
shows
know,
you've
just package deal. Package deal.
of all the shows you've directed, do you have a favorite?
Oh goodness. Um, Among my favorite shows that I've directed, um, have been The Anatomy of Grey at Altamont School, which is a play written by the same man who wrote The Diviners. His name
Oh,
escapes
cool.
me at the moment, but it is a brilliant show, and I happen to have brilliant students doing it, and it was beautiful. It takes place in the late 1800s and uh, mid mid in the Midwest, and I just had some great kids in that show, and it all came together so beautifully. Anyway, the Anatomy of Grey, and it had nothing to do with the show that was very popular at the time called Grey's Anatomy, but it did have to do with the book Grey's Anatomy that one was based on too. But it
Very
was The
cool.
Anatomy of Grey, and the lead character's name was Mr. Grey, and he was a doctor. It was just a really cool mix of it was tense, it was dramatic. Uh, my most recent favorite was Metamorphoses, um, the one that was done recently at Circle in the Square on Broadway, written by one of the professors at um, based on Ovid's Metamorphoses. We actually at the Altamont School this past fall built a set with a pool in the middle of it with water.
How
And it
cool.
came out, the characters came up out of the water in the pool. And it was super, super neat. I loved that one. As far as musicals, oh wait, I have to mention Best Christmas Pageant Ever, which I've directed more times than anything else. You may have noticed it popping up on my list of things I've directed. I dearly love that show, and I've never been in it. I've
Okay.
always been the director of it, never been in it, but it is just such a great show, such a feel-good show, and I love it. And I did the original one, not the. I think they've made another one that added some more music to it, but
They have.
yeah. And then I wrote. Oh, and then Music Man is always such a good family show, and I love directing it, especially
Nice.
especially at Homewood High School and at Vestavia Methodist Church for the parappa players.
Very nice. You received your Associate of Fine Arts from Young Harris College in Young Harris, Georgia. What was it like going to a small Methodist college and being a mountain lion?
Well, I'd rather be a mountain lion than a cougar. Um, but having said that, having said that, it was a great place to start my serious acting. I didn't have to be an elf anymore, and I did two plays there that really made a big difference in how I saw theater. One of them was Wait Until Dark. Do you know that play?
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's a great play. I think even better as a play than as a movie, but the movie with what's her name, Audrey Hepburn,
Audrey
was
Hepburn.
really good. Yeah, I think I did a better job of the character, of course, but uh, but doing a performance as a blind person was a really big challenge for this college freshman, and it was well done. It was well directed. It was a big stretch for me, and I really did enjoy it. We also did Miracle Worker And I played the mother in that production, Miracle Worker, at Young Harris. But the other thing that Young Harris did for me was that it introduced me to Gilbert and Sullivan. And
Oh,
I had never known Gilbert and Sullivan plays, and we did two of them while I was there. We did The Gondoliers and The Mikado, and
oh,
it was just so much fun, so much fun. So ever since then, I've always loved Gilbert and Sullivan. I never directed one. Maybe I'll have to.
that's one you need to do right there. Tell
Yeah,
us about how
I
you got
have
into teaching.
costumed one. I did not want to be a teacher. Um, I had planned not to be, specifically planned not to be a teacher. My mother was a teacher, and I guess I saw how hard she worked and all of the papers to grade and everything, and and frustrations and so forth. And I guess that's why I thought, nah, I'm not going to ever be a teacher. But of course, my sister and I, my only sister and I, both became teachers. Um, um, but what happened to make me realize I was supposed to be a teacher was that at Furman, I went from Young Harris to Furman University. And at Furman, um, I I had fallen in love with the French language at Young Harris also, and so I was doing a double major, and my and French was going to be what I got my teaching certificate in, and so my we had to do this thing called pre-student teaching, where you just
Yes.
go in one day and do one little lesson,
Yep. Did it.
and and I and I, I was prepared and everything. I went into that classroom. It was a French one class, and I had the lesson planned. And I remember what I was wearing. I remember what the room looked like. Um, it was so vivid. It was such a vivid thing. And I'm teaching this lesson all in French, and the kids are sitting there and they're responding to me and stuff. And all of a sudden, about, oh, I don't know, 2/3 of the way through the thing, I thought, oh my God, this is just like acting, only nobody can leave. So I realized that doubling in theater and French, or any foreign language for that matter, is a lot about acting, and you got a captive audience, you know. So and I had a great time. I just loved doing it, and that was the first time it had ever occurred to me that what I was going to be doing was going to be fun. So there you go.
It
So from then on out, I thought, okay, this makes sense. I'll do it. My daddy had said I had to get a teaching certificate just in case the whole plan to go to New York fell through.
well, it was really what I set out to do.
Yeah.
And when I was doing just that, my internship, going in, teaching the one-day class, one of the lady teachers pulled me aside and basically shook me and said, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Trying to become a teacher." And she goes, "No, you're male. In Alabama, you'll never make enough to make a living. Do something else."
Oh my goodness. Well, unless you're married to a doctor, you know.
So that was my teaching career, was someone scaring me out of
Mm.
it.
Well, that's a shame. But you know, all of your acting, that's teaching too. It
It
really is.
is. It
It
is.
really
And
is.
and I still get to do a little bit of it. I go in and teach improv classes here and there,
Hmm.
and get to work with kids and see what I'm missing. So it's all good.
And
Uh,
directing is teaching.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. I love directing.
So you
Uh,
got to do it.
what challenges you as an actor? What kind of push do you enjoy best when it comes to your stage work?
Oh, a really complex character with a history, with some deep some deep secrets is always really fun. Um, And sometimes you have to invent the past for them and invent the secrets, and that's a lot of fun. You get to kind of pull little hints from here and there, in the script, and say, okay, this must have happened to her to make her do that. So a really complicated, complicated character. And I love getting immersed in those characters and finding all of these little levels within them. And also I do dearly love doing accents.
On that note,
So accents are always fun.
on that note, I had the pleasure of working with you on Crossing Delancey at the LJCC, and I love the character that you created for that show. One of the joys for me in doing it was watching you from off stage every night and the work you were doing on stage. And that goes across the board for everybody that was in that show. I thought everybody did just a brilliant job, and that makes anytime you're having to wait to go on stage so much easier, because you're
Yeah.
enjoying the other people's work. Do you have a favorite role in the roles that you've created?
Um, the role of Bubby in Crossing Delancey is one of my favorites. And you and I never had any. You and I had no shared no scenes. You were never on when I was on, but I talked about you because Bubby knew what was best.
That's
Because
right.
Bubby was like 80,000 years old. But I did love Bubby. And she had a history, and she had a lot of complication, and she had an accent. You can't ask for too much more than that. Also, a few musicals that I've really loved doing. I love doing Kadishah in a production of the Mikado here in Birmingham, and Yenta in Fiddler, and Mother Superior in Nonsense. I did at Clark Theater, and Miss Hannigan. Miss Hannigan is a really fun role and another accent.
There you go.
Yeah.
Tell us about the awards you've won. Does one award stand out for you?
I really felt honored to win the Marion Galloway Award, which was given by the Alabama Conference of Theater. It's their top award each year, and I felt very humbled by it. And it was fairly early in my incredibly long teaching career, but Marion Galloway started the theater program at University of Alabama, and was apparently, I never met Marion Galloway, but was apparently a force to be dealt with. Everybody who knew that person thought, whoa, this is something huge that I've met this person. And I heard all these stories about Marion Galloway, and I thought, wow, this is great to win this award. And then the other one I think that's real special was being named into the Alabama Educational Theater Hall of Fame by
Cool.
by the Thespians, Alabama Thespians. And so I felt really honored by that.
What are your hobbies outside of theater?
When I have time for hobbies, I do painting. This is one of my pieces right here.
Beautiful.
I paint. Thank you. I paint. I garden some, not as much as people who are really good at it, just enough to beautify a little bit. I love to sing. I sing in the choir whenever we get back to it. I sing in the choir at Vestavia Methodist Church, and I'm actually one of those people that bursts into songs all the time. If you say a word, I've got a song for it. kind of drive some people crazy, I think. But hey, what you gonna do? It's there. There's a song in my heart.
There you go.
Um, I
Problem is
also love
mine
to
all have the
read,
wrong
and
lyrics.
I love to read. You should see the stacks of books all over my house, and the shelves of books all over my house. I love to read, and I love to be in theater, and I love to sew, and the biggie is I love to travel.
Nice.
So
Man,
I'm
well,
waiting for this stupid COVID virus to go away so we can all travel again.
that's right. What do you consider your first lead role in a production? And how did it feel to have a lead in the show? Tell me about the experience.
Gosh, I guess my first real, I'm thinking real hard. I guess my first real lead um, in Birmingham. I think my first real lead in Birmingham was Marion the Librarian in a production of Music Man. Either that or Maria in Sound of Music. I did both of those shows here in Birmingham at First Stage Players,
Nice.
the First Methodist, and really, I guess the more challenging one, just logistically, the more challenging one was Maria in Sound of Music, because that woman has to change clothes constantly. At the beginning of the show, she's in a nun's habit with black stockings. And in the very next scene, that's like, boom, she is in this ugly dress with a hat and white stockings, white tights. And then almost immediately, she's in the nun's habit again. So at one point, she has to wear three, or at least I did, has to wear three pairs of tights layered on top of each other, because
Yep.
you don't have time to do the whole thing. A dear friend of mine, Robin Baker, was my dresser for that show, and I couldn't have done it without her. Because I just had to constantly keep changing clothes. But that one was a challenge vocally, but I dearly loved doing that show. It was a beautiful show. It was sweet. I painted 2/3 of the scenery for it too. Made costumes. We made costumes for 2 sets of Von Trapp children. We had a tall cast and a short cast of Von Trapp children. So we've had to make twice as many costumes. Thank goodness some of their mothers could help out with that. That was a fun show.
Tell us about an unexpected stage experience, something that surprised you or caught you off guard.
As a director,
Or as an actor, either one.
as a director, something that caught me off guard, and I was so proud of this kid. I teach improvisation because you have to improvise in life. You definitely have to on stage. And I had a student, and these were in my early years. This was at Ramsey High School. And Denise was supposed to be playing this haughty rich woman. And there was the maid was lolling about. And she said to the maid, she gave the line, "Can't you find something useful to do?" And the doorbell was supposed to ring, and it didn't. And it didn't ring. And and it was funny because the doorbell ringing was the cue to the next line, because she said, "Can't you find something useful to do?" The maid says, "I don't know, I ain't had time to look." Doorbell rings, and she says, "Go answer the door." Well, the doorbell didn't ring. And so she said, well, then just go clean the toilets. but it was so quick and so flawless, nobody knew. And so the maid who, was going along with that suggestion, got up and said, gosh, and started walking away. And then the kid, the sound kid, suddenly realized, oh my gosh, hit the doorbell. And so Denise said, oh, forget the toilets, go answer the doorbell.
Nice recovery.
It was great. It was great. It was great.
Do you have a favorite director that you've worked with?
I really have enjoyed almost every director I've ever had. Two that stand out for me are Bobby Funk, who was at UAB and directed me in Our Lady of Perrysburg for Southern Playworks one year. Fun show. And he was such a good director. I hated for him to move to Tennessee, where he's doing some great directing at East Tennessee State University now. But he and okay, I got to choose now. I got to choose. Okay. I'm not going to say him. I'm not going to say him because one of them would be hurt by not. Okay, so I'm not going to say anybody else. I'm just going to say Bobby Funk.
That's fine.
So he's great.
Tell us about your original scripts that you've written. What made you start writing scripts?
Necessity is the mother of invention. That's what made me start at first. I started when I was at Ramsey, my first school where I taught. I had a big bunch of kids, and I needed a show that could showcase them, and we needed to promote our program because we were the magnet school, right? And we wanted to encourage kids to come there. So I wrote a thing that was all nursery rhymes put together, had a little bit of dance, a little bit of song, and of course nursery rhymes are in public domain, so it didn't cost us anything, and we would put a hat on and become a different character, that kind of thing. It was real fun, and we invited our feeder schools, our schools where the kids would be able to possibly come to Ramsey, so they could see the theater and see that these kids were doing this show. And we had a talk back. We had a actor talk back at the end of the show. That was the very first one, besides the smallest elf. But it was because I needed something there, and that's and often I guess that's what Shakespeare did too, right? He had a group of people that he needed to write a play for them to perform. So I guess he started as in the same way doing that. I will not say that I am anywhere close to Shakespeare as a playwright, however. Although I do love doing Shakespearean plays. I do really enjoy Shakespeare.
Is there a role or roles on your bucket list, or do you have a show you want to direct that's on your bucket list?
I want either to be in or to direct Come From Away as soon as it's available. I loved Come From Away when I saw it in New York, and it had everything. It was just a wonderful, wonderful piece of theater, and I adored it. I'd like to be in it if I couldn't direct it, but the role, okay, listen up out there, everybody. This is what you need to direct. I've always wanted to do Mame. I've always wanted to be Mame, and now I'm old enough
There you go.
So, you know, somebody needs to direct me and cast me in it. I wouldn't even worry if you wanted me to do Vera instead. I've never been in that show. I've always wanted to be.
If you could perform on stage with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Mm. You know, when you sent me that question, I thought, oh gosh, there's so many amazing people out there who are incredible actors. I watched what's it called? An episode, I guess, of the Actor Studio with Colin Firth that made me really, really want to share the stage with Colin Firth, not just because he's a hunka, but also because he's intense and really knows his stuff. And the other person I would love to share a stage with is Helen Mirren. Oh my gosh, she's brilliant.
Yeah, she could just read the phone book to me.
Yeah, exactly.
I think she's amazing. That's a wonderful choice.
Oh, and I would be willing to play the maid if Patrick Stewart were to do any show.
Anything.
I'll just come in sweeping.
I'd play the maid, even with the beard.
Yeah. You could be the butler. I could be the maid. It'd be great.
In a heartbeat with that man.
Yeah. And you know what? I just named 3 British actors, and there are lots and lots of wonderful American actors, but those 3 just rise to the top for me. So
it's a tough question. That's why I like to ask it, because you kind of you have to think, okay, what's that one person that I would really just like to take the time to have that experience, just to walk on stage with.
Do you have an answer for that, Clay?
Oh, that's the questionnaire question. Mine's
do tell.
Mine does kind of fluctuate, but my actress would be Anne Margaret, because again, talk about I think she's stunning, and I've loved her in everything I've ever seen her in, and just think she's one of those folks I'd love to meet. And on the actor side, it would probably be Harrison Ford, just simply because he's never made a movie I didn't like.
Yeah.
And to me, he's kind of the non-actor's actor. He doesn't try real hard. He just gets up and kind of plays a version of himself over and over again, but it works. And I love that.
Yeah.
You know, because if you can play yourself, then hey, you've got a character for life. So
That's true.
What is your favorite theater memory? It could be a show you were in or a show you saw.
My favorite theater memory was when I saw Metamorphoses in New York at Circle in the Square. And oh no, there's one even better than this, but I'll tell you about this one. Okay, I'll tell you about this one, then I'll tell you the other one. All right. You know, I'm very taciturn. Have you noticed that I hardly speak at all? But I found myself standing up, applauding, without remembering that I had stood up or thinking I'll stand up. It was like, as soon as the very last moment in that play, I was on my feet. And I said to myself, when I was leaving that theater that night, I said to myself, I want to direct that play. Mm-hmm. And I usually say, I would like to be in that play or direct it, but that one I wanted to direct, and that dream came true this past fall in my last teaching year at Altamont. And I had brilliant students in that show. And we had a pool. Okay, the other one is Warhorse that I saw in New York, and I realized at some point in the show, I realized that I had stopped breathing, that I was holding my breath.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there on the edge of my chair watching it, and all of a sudden I thought I had to gasp air because I was so into it that I wasn't breathing. That's pretty damn strong.
It's brilliant. It's a brilliant stage production. It is really, it brings everything about theater together in one package that is haunting. I mean, yeah, I'm right there with you on that one. I saw it locally. I didn't see it in New York, but I saw it when it came to Birmingham.
I did too. I saw it then, and it was really wonderful that time too.
I thought
I don't
everybody.
know if I held my breath or not.
Yeah, but they did a wonderful job with the story and with the staging. It was just beautiful.
Yeah, it was great. Those puppets were amazing.
Amazing. And those puppeteers, they gave it a life I never knew possible.
They became those animals. It was just wow, amazing, so amazing.
Tell us something about yourself that even your close friends wouldn't know.
You know, I did read your questions ahead of time, and I don't know the answer to that. I feel like because I'm such a chatty Cathy, I really don't know that there's anything. I really don't know that there's anything that's a secret. I'm trying to think of one, but I tell everybody. Yeah. I can't think of anything. Seriously, isn't that amazing?
That's a very valid answer. Very valid answer.
If I can think of something, I'll text it to you, and you can't tell me.
I'll put it after the show, and if people watch, I'll put a little blank space.
Sure.
What is your favorite theater story? It could be something that happened to you, something you heard, or a tall tale.
Okay, I'm told that this happened. I don't know who, but what play it was. But apparently, John Barrymore was in a play. I don't know where the play was. I don't know what the play was, but he's standing on stage, and the person who was supposed to give the next line went up and blanked. And supposedly, Barrymore did a long curved cross across the stage to that character, walked down to the character, everything stopped, walked down to the character slowly, ponderously, and said, "Not my line." I don't know if it's true or not, but isn't that a great story?
I'll have to remember that next time I'm on stage. I've always wanted to just touch my nose and go, "Not it."
Not my line. So I always tell that one to my students or the people that I'm directing in a play. I always say, you be ready. You be ready to save your scene partner because you may have to. And John Barrymore might could get by with that, but I wasn't his director. I would have dressed him down for it.
Oh, well, yeah. And that's one thing I love about theater too, is as actors, we all tend to take care of each other. Now, that's not to say when somebody goes up on lines, the entire cast pretty much goes up on lines because we're all panicking in that moment going,
Yeah.
okay, what's my line? What were you supposed to say? How was I supposed to answer? And we go through all of that in that infinitesimal small amount of time that seems like it goes on forever
Oh
when
yeah.
you're on stage. But yeah,
Oh yeah.
that's part of the joy of theater, is taking care of each other.
It is. It is.
What do you enjoy more, acting or directing, and why?
Um, because of how much I direct at school, um, especially in the last probably 10 years, I've done a lot of directing. I think whether it's something that I love more, um, I I don't get to do as often. I really want to act. One of the things I want to do since I'm retiring is get to act. I would also like to direct some, but not for shows that like conflict with anything that I could audition for. So many shows that I would have loved to have auditioned for in this city, because we have such a wealth of theaters in this city that
We
that
are
I didn't
blessed.
get to do. I didn't get to do. And thank goodness there were a few that I did manage to work around uh, my schedule of my directing at Altamont School. I got to do with Dane Peterson directing it, Calendar Girls. It was so much fun.
It was it was a
Uh,
blast.
yeah, it was a blast. Um, and um, and then I got to do Love, Loss, and What I Wore down at South City, and that was just great fun. Um, really, really loved that group of gals. Uh, and Sue Ellen was great as a director. And then I got to do a beautiful, beautiful show that will always be in my heart, I think, and that's The Diviners at Birmingham Festival Theater. So I did get to do those, but they had to work around, it was like chess pieces, trying to make sure I could be this place at this time, you know. So I'm looking forward to acting, and I'm looking forward to directing too. But I have a lot of stuff that I want to try.
Fun.
Yeah.
What is
So
the
you have to direct Maine out there. Maine.
I'll put that I'll just have that flash up at places. That way we can do some
Maine.
subliminal.
Yeah.
What is the Bay Area Writers Project?
Oh, such a cool thing I got to do. I wrote a grant and applied for. I applied for this money, grant money for playwriting, because I had emphasized production, um, directing, and acting more than writing, even though I have also a degree in English. I hadn't done a whole lot of really training myself to be a playwright. So I started looking for what I could do for the amount of money that was in that grant. And I was able to go to Berkeley, um, it, to UNC Berkeley, not Berkeley up in Boston. Um, and I was able to go there for I think it was 3 weeks. I lived in the dorm, and I took a wonderful playwriting course from one of the professors at UC Berkeley. And we had the morning classes, and then the afternoon and evening we could work on our assignments, our plays. And I'd never been to San Francisco, which was one of the big reasons that I found that place. And I got to see San Francisco. It was just beautiful. It was a wonderful, wonderful 3-week course. And then I think it was maybe I was home for maybe 2 weeks, and then I went to Playwrights Inc. in New York City for a week and did their playwriting course, and it was all paid for by that grant. So it was very, very cool.
That is nice.
But that's how I got to the the Bay, the Bay Area.
I was lucky enough to catch your class on pantomime, and I smile at the thought of the joy that you brought to the class and to me in teaching that. It was a wonderful, wonderful class. I enjoyed every minute of it. How did you first learn about pantomime?
Way back when I was a kid, I was fascinated with Red Skelton and his pantomime. You know, he was a brilliant mind. And then I found Marcel Marceau. And of course, Marcel Marceau, to me, is the greatest of all mimes ever. I was completely enraptured with what he could do with nothing but a face, two hands, his body at a spotlight. And then I found out that he was a huge war hero in France. So of course I've constantly balanced my love of France and French with my love of theater. And I started at Ramsey. They encouraged us to design different courses. And so I decided I would design a course in pantomime. And it was very physical. So I was able to talk them into letting the kids get PE credit for pantomime, which made the class.
There you go.
Because there were kids who didn't want to take PE. And I knew this because I was one of those kids who never wanted to take PE. And so I trained those kids and we worked together on pantomime, and I just love it. I still to this day love pantomime. And I'm still, I'm still teaching it, and I still teach it in my classes. I haven't ever had for gosh, probably 10 years that I was, maybe more, that I was at Ramsey High School. We had a group called Ramsey Mastermime. And I'll tell you how long ago it was, because we did all these festivals around town. They'd call me and they'd say, "We've heard that you have a group of mimes." And I said, "Yeah." So they would go out and we would do all of these different festivals. And we got a call when they were building or were finishing the Galleria Mall. And they wanted the mimes for the grand opening. It was, I think, 3 weekends, grand opening. And I put together shifts for those kids. And we always had 8 mimes at any given time while they were open on those first 3 weekends at the Galleria.
How nice.
So that's how long ago it was when we were doing all of this. But I still have students who are friends of mine on Facebook, or I run into them somewhere at a store or in an audience somewhere, or at a play that I'm going to actually see them perform. And they say, I still remember my pantomime. Because it's a great acting tool. Everybody needs to be comfortable with their body. So many kids who are high school actors are not comfortable with their body, and they can have this great speaking voice, but they look like a scarecrow standing on stage because they don't know how to move.
Right.
And so it's been I think it's been really good for a lot of my students who did things other than just pantomime.
Mm-hmm.
But then there are the ones that were afraid to speak also, and there is pantomime for them.
And I think improv works the same way with teaching these kids. Just be comfortable in who you are. If you can learn hey, I'm okay with me, then you can go out and be all these other
Yeah.
people that we're going to ask you to be when you're on stage. And I think
Yeah.
it's a valuable lesson for kids to learn to be okay with who they are. Um, it was what scared me as a kid. It's what scared me in high school. Was trying to figure out who I was going to be when I grew up.
So you decided to be everybody.
That's right. That's right. That's well, and
Bragging.
that's what I say at my job when people ask, "Well, how did you get into computer work?" I was like, "I just act like I know what I'm doing."
And I act like a teacher.
There you go. Speaking of that, you've taught both French and theater. Do you have a favorite?
French theater.
Great answer. I'm going to end this the same way the show that I'm ripping off ends their show, with asking 10 questions. They're basically they're from a French personality who came up with this personality test. So you don't have to think too hard about the answers. Just say what's the first thing that comes to mind, or you can take as long as you like. What is your favorite word?
Adorable.
What is your least favorite word?
No.
What turns you on?
Waking up to birdsong.
What turns you off?
Apathy.
What sound or noise do you love?
In addition to the bird songs. Laughter.
What sound or noise do you hate?
Oh. Popping gum. When people pop chewing gum.
What is your favorite curse word?
Now we get to decide, is the one I use the most or is the one I like the most? Okay, I'll tell you. I'll give you the PG version. In the one of my favorite movies, Christmas Story, the father is a cursor, and the son says, "Oh, fudge." And of course, the narrator voice says, "But I didn't say fudge."
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Lounge singer.
What profession would you not like to do?
Plumber.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Well, it's about time.
Great answers. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I have enjoyed every minute of it. It is so nice to see you.
It's great to see you too, Clay. Thank you so much for doing this.